Met with my wife's boss expecting a job opportunity. Instead, he looked nervous and handed me a folder. Inside were photos of my wife and him. On a trip to Paris. I smiled, closed the folder, and said, "Guess you're funding her shopping trips now. I'm out." My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how I discovered my wife's betrayal and the unexpected turn my life took afterward. The day started like any other in Seattle, overcast skies and a light drizzle that seemed to persist endlessly. I was seated at our modest kitchen table, sifting through job listings on my laptop. Bills had been piling up since I was laid off from my project manager position at a tech startup that downsized unexpectedly. The stress was mounting, and the weight of unemployment was beginning to take its toll on my self-esteem. Laura, my wife of 7 years, entered the kitchen, her presence as radiant as ever. She had always been the organized and proactive one in our relationship, often finding solutions to problems before I even recognized them. Her job at a prominent marketing firm had been our primary source of income lately, and she seemed to be thriving in her role. "Morning, honey," she greeted, placing a warm cup of coffee in front of me. "Any promising leads today?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Not much. I've sent out dozens of applications, but the market's tough right now." She sat down across from me, her eyes filled with concern. I was thinking, Richard, my boss, has a lot of connections in the industry. Maybe he could help you find something. I can talk to him and set up a meeting if you'd like. I hesitated. The idea of seeking help from Laura's boss didn't sit well with me, but I couldn't afford to let pride stand in the way of potential opportunities. "Are you sure you wouldn't mind?" "Not at all," she assured me with a smile. "He's always mentioning how he likes to help talented individuals. I'll give him a call today." True to her word, Laura arranged a meeting with Richard for the following afternoon at a cafe downtown. The prospect of discussing potential job opportunities with someone of his stature made me both anxious and hopeful. The next day, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. It was a quaint establishment nestled between towering office buildings, offering a cozy respite from the bustling city streets. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of rain-soaked pavement, creating an oddly comforting atmosphere. I spotted Richard seated at a corner table, his posture slightly hunched as he stirred his espresso absent-mindedly. He was a man in his mid-50s, with neatly combed graying hair and a tailored suit that spoke of affluence and authority. As I approached, he glanced up, and a flicker of recognition crossed his face. "Daniel, please, have a seat," he gestured to the chair opposite him. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said, extending my hand. His handshake was limp, his palm clammy, a stark contrast to the confident demeanor I had anticipated. As I settled into the chair, Richard reached into his leather briefcase and retrieved a manila folder. He placed it on the table between us, his fingers tapping nervously on its surface. "I need to show you something," he began, avoiding direct eye contact. His voice was strained, carrying an undertone of unease. Curiosity piqued, I opened the folder. Inside were several photographs, each capturing intimate moments between Richard and Laura. They were in Paris, strolling hand in hand along the Seine, sharing a kiss beneath the Eiffel Tower, laughing together at a candlelit dinner. The images painted a vivid picture of a romantic escapade. A surge of emotions coursed through me: shock, betrayal, anger. My grip on the photos tightened as I struggled to process the reality before me. The woman I had shared my life with, the partner I had trusted implicitly, had been unfaithful. And not just with anyone, but with her boss, the very man sitting across from me. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain composed. Closing the folder, I slid it back toward Richard, who looked as though he wished to be anywhere but here. "Guess you're funding her shopping trips now," I said evenly. "I'm out." Without waiting for a response, I stood up and exited the cafe, the bell above the door jingling softly as I stepped into the rain. The cool droplets mingled with the warmth of my tears, though I refused to let them fall. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, each vying for dominance. The drive home was a blur. The familiar streets of our neighborhood felt foreign, each landmark a reminder of the life Laura and I had built together, a life that now felt like a facade. As I pulled into our driveway, the weight of the situation settled heavily on my shoulders. Entering the house, I found Laura in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The sight of her, so serene and unsuspecting, ignited a fresh wave of anger within me. "Daniel, you're home early," she remarked, turning to face me with a warm smile. That smile, once a source of comfort, now felt like a dagger to my heart. "We need to talk," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Her smile faltered, concern etching lines across her forehead. "What's wrong?" I set my keys on the counter, the metallic clink echoing in the tense silence. "I met with Richard today." Laura's eyes widened slightly, and she swallowed hard. "Oh, how did it go?" I met her gaze, searching for any sign of remorse or guilt. "He gave me a folder full of pictures. You and him. In Paris." The color drained from her face, and she took a step back, gripping the edge of the counter for support. "Daniel, I can explain." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Explain what, Laura? That you've been having an affair? That while I was here, struggling to find work and keep our lives together, you were gallivanting around Paris with your boss?" Tears welled up in her eyes, threatening to spill over. I felt neglected. You were so consumed with your job search, and Richard was there. He listened to me, made me feel valued." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "So your solution was to cheat? To betray our marriage vows?" She reached out, attempting to touch my arm, but I recoiled. Please, Daniel. I made a terrible mistake. I love you. Love. I spat the word, the taste of it now sour. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. Silence enveloped us, the chasm between us growing with each passing second. Finally, I spoke, my voice weary and defeated. I need time to think. Turning away, I grabbed my coat and left the house, the door closing with a resounding finality. The rain had intensified, mirroring the storm raging within me. I drove aimlessly through the city, the rhythmic patter of rain against the windshield providing a semblance of solace. Eventually, I found myself at Cary Park, a small enclave offering a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline. The Space Needle stood tall amidst the sea of buildings, its lights piercing through the gloom. I sat on a damp bench, the chill seeping through my clothes, but I welcomed the discomfort. It was a distraction from the emotional turmoil. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, undoubtedly with my phone buzzed in my pocket nonstop. I didn't want to look at it, but something in me gave in. 24 missed messages. 15 from Laura. 9 from Mike, my best friend. I wasn't ready to read Laura's messages. But Mike? That was different. I tapped on his name. The first text hit hard. Call me ASAP. It's about Laura. I didn't know how to tell you. My chest tightened. I dialed him. He answered before the first ring even ended. Dan? Man, are you okay? He asked. I could hear traffic in the background. No, but I need to hear whatever it is you think I should know. Just say it. He hesitated. Listen, this might be a bad time, but you deserve to know. I saw Laura and Richard together months ago. In Chicago. I didn't tell you because I thought maybe it was work-related. But they didn't act like co-workers. My grip on the phone tightened. What do you mean? They were holding hands in a hotel lobby. They were smiling, laughing, like they were on vacation. She told you she had that big client meeting in Chicago, remember? I remembered. It was last fall. She had packed a red coat I bought her for Christmas the year before. Said she'd be back in 3 days. She came back smiling, said it went well. We even celebrated. Mike kept talking. I only saw them for a few minutes, and I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. And now? I asked. He sighed. Now I think she's been lying to you for a long time. I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I stared out at the skyline again. The lights blurred through my wet eyes. It wasn't just Paris. It wasn't a one-time mistake. She had been doing this for months, maybe longer. She had built a second life behind my back. The rain was coming down harder. I let it soak through my clothes. I didn't care. Back in the car, I sat in silence for a long time. The heater hummed low, but I still felt cold. A part of me wanted to drive home and scream. A part of me wanted to disappear. But instead, I drove to the office building where Laura worked. I parked across the street and just watched. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe proof. Maybe to see her with him again. Maybe just to see the place where it all started. The building lights were on. Her floor was lit. It was almost 9 p.m. And then I saw her. Through the big glass windows. Standing near Richard's desk. He was there too. They weren't touching, but their body language said more than enough. He leaned close, whispering. She smiled. Not nervously. Like it was normal. I watched until she picked up her purse and walked toward the elevator. I pulled away before she saw me. I didn't go home. I checked into a cheap motel on the north side, just off Aurora. The kind of place where no one asked questions. The room smelled like old smoke and bleach, but it was quiet. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. Laura had sent more messages. Daniel, please come home. Can we talk? I made a mistake. I need you. The last one was sent just an hour ago. We need to talk about the house. Please don't do anything rash. The house. Our home. That's where her mind was now. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove back to the cafe where I met Richard. I sat in the same spot. Same chair. Same table. I ordered a black coffee and stared at the entrance. I was waiting for him. Again. This time, I texted him directly. You owe me more than a folder of photos. Meet me. 10 minutes later, he walked in. He looked exhausted. Like he hadn't slept. He sat down without a word. I leaned in. You've been seeing her longer than Paris, haven't you? He didn't answer. His eyes gave it away. Chicago? I asked. Maybe before that. He looked down at his hands. I didn't mean for this to happen, he muttered. She told me your marriage was falling apart. That you were always distant. That she wasn't happy. I laughed once. Just once. Cold and sharp. And you believed her? He shrugged. People tell stories to justify things. I stared at him. So what now? Are you going to marry her? Play house with the woman you helped tear mine apart? He didn't answer. Again. You know what's sad? I said. You were the one who handed me the folder. Not her. You couldn't even keep your own secret straight. His face turned red, like he just realized how badly he'd screwed up. I leaned closer. Keep her. Keep the mess. But don't ever contact me again. I stood and walked out before he could speak. But I didn't feel better. Later that night, Mike called again. Dan, something weird just happened. What now? I asked. You remember Liz from college? She just DM'd me. She works in HR at Laura's company. She says Richard is under internal investigation. I sat up straight. For what? Mike's voice dropped. They got a tip. Someone leaked the Paris photos to the company board anonymously. HR is looking into his relationship with Laura and other female employees. I didn't say anything, just stared at the motel wall. Mike hesitated. Was that you? No, I said quietly. Wasn't me. But it got me thinking. Someone else knew. Someone else was watching, too. And that changed everything. Mike's words stuck with me long after the call ended. Someone had leaked the Paris photos. Not me. Not Mike. That left who? I went over every possibility. Laura wouldn't have done it. Richard? Maybe. Maybe he was trying to cut things off and panicked. But the way he looked at me in that cafe, nervous, ashamed, didn't seem like a man trying to get ahead of a scandal. It had to be someone else. The next morning, I went back to the house while Laura was at work. I needed a few things: clothes, my laptop, some personal documents. I wasn't planning to stay. As I opened the desk drawer in our bedroom to grab my passport, I noticed something strange. A small silver flash drive, unmarked, tucked beneath an old stack of pay stubs. I didn't remember putting it there. I popped it into my laptop, heart thumping. Inside were folders, labeled by date. I clicked on the first one. Photos. More photos. Dozens. Of Laura and Richard. Hotels, airports, dinners, selfies and bathrobes. Some dated over a year ago. I clicked another folder, audio files. I hesitated, then played one. Laura's voice. Clear as day. He's not going to find out. Daniel's too wrapped up in himself to notice. Richard, stop worrying. Another file. Richard, what about work? People are starting to ask questions. Laura, let them. I can handle it. Let me worry about Daniel. My stomach turned. These weren't just slip-ups. These were planned. Layered. Comfortable. I checked the properties of the files. All created on a single laptop model, mine. Which meant someone had accessed my computer, or planted this for me to find. I backed up the files, then deleted them from the flash drive. Whatever this was, someone wanted me to know the truth, in full. I left the house and went to Mike's place. He was in his garage working on his bike, grease on his hands. Dude, I said, you're not going to believe what I just found. He listened, face growing more serious with each word. Someone's either watching them or watching me, I said. Or both, Mike added. We spent the rest of the night going through the files. Mike spotted something I missed, reflections in one photo. In the mirror behind Laura and Richard in what looked like a hotel suite, there was a flash, like a phone camera, coming from the crack of the bathroom door. Someone was in the room, he said. I zoomed in. The angle was strange, but it was clear. Someone had been spying. But who? Mike started piecing things together. Wait. Didn't Laura have a falling out with a coworker a few months ago? What was her name, Janice? That clicked. Laura mentioned Janice once. Said she was jealous and nosy. Said she was trying to sabotage her. I opened Facebook. Found Janice's profile. It was public. Her last post. Some people wear masks to work. Eventually, the truth comes out. Posted 2 days ago. A long shot, but I sent her a message. She replied within the hour. Janice, I thought you'd never reach out. I'm sorry. You deserve to know. Me. Did you leak the photos? Janice, no. But I gave them to someone who did. Me, why? Janice, because Laura wasn't just cheating on you. She was screwing over other women in the office. She manipulated her way up. Used people. Lied. And Richard let it happen. Me? So why tell me now? Janice, because someone had to. And HR wouldn't act without proof. You were the last piece of the puzzle. So this wasn't just a cheating scandal. It was deeper. Laura wasn't just unfaithful. She was ruthless. Strategic. She had been playing everyone, including me. And now it was starting to unravel. Mike leaned back in his chair, letting out a low whistle. Dan, you're sitting on a bomb. He was right. And I hadn't even lit the fuse yet. I didn't sleep that night. My mind ran like a freight train. Every memory, every conversation, every time Laura kissed me goodbye while lying straight to my face, replayed in loops. I thought I'd felt rock bottom when Richard slid that folder across the cafe table, but I hadn't even scratched the surface. This wasn't just cheating. This was layers of manipulation, lies, people getting used, careers destroyed. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. Out in the open. No more secrets. No more playing calm while my life burned underneath me. I called Janice the next morning. I need one more thing from you, I said. What? Be there. When I confront them. I need someone in the room who knows the real story. Someone they can't gaslight. There was a pause. I'll be there. We planned it fast. The company was holding its quarterly team review later that week in their own building's conference floor, a full staff meeting where most higher-ups were expected. Janice tipped me off. Richard would be there. Laura too. I showed up uninvited. Janice had cleared it with security. Said I was a special guest speaker, which got me past the lobby. She was waiting in the hallway outside the glass-paneled meeting room, arms crossed, her eyes full of quiet fire. Inside, Richard stood at the front. Laura sat 3 rows back, legs crossed, a notepad on her lap like she was actually paying attention. Janice nodded at me. I pushed open the door. People turned. Murmurs started. Richard's voice faltered. Laura turned, saw me, and went pale. I walked up to the front, stood next to Richard. Hi. Sorry to interrupt. I'm Daniel, Laura's husband. You could hear a pin drop. Richard stepped forward, tried to speak. I put a hand up. I'll be brief, I said. I I was unemployed a few months ago. Laura, my wife, told me her boss might have a job lead for me. We met at a cafe. He handed me a folder. I thought it'd be a resume or some kind of offer. I pulled the folder from my bag. The same one. I opened it. Photos of Laura and Richard, hand in hand in Paris, stared back at the room. A woman in the crowd gasped. I kept going. But it wasn't that. It was this. Proof that while I was jobless and trying to keep our house afloat, my wife and her boss were traveling together. Behind my back. For over a year. Janice stepped forward. I backed up every file. I have recordings. These weren't isolated incidents. There was Chicago. Denver. Company funds paid for some of it. HR has them now. Laura stood up, voice trembling. Daniel, stop. Please, this isn't the place. I turned toward her. This is exactly the place. You didn't care about places when you used our shared savings to upgrade your travel class to fly with him. When you came home and said the client loved your pitch, you lied, over and over. I believed every word. Richard tried to take control. All right, this isn't productive, no, Janice snapped. What's not productive is a senior executive abusing power and gaslighting an entire department while sleeping with a married subordinate. Now the murmurs turned to whispers. I started around. A few staff pulled out their phones. HR reps stood up and quietly slipped out, probably to start damage control. Laura's voice cracked. You're ruining everything. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No love. No hate. Just a strange kind of quiet. You already did that. She started crying, right there in front of everyone. But they weren't the kind of tears you cry when you're sorry. They were the tears you cry when you're caught. People started leaving the room, one by one. Some threw awkward glances. A few looked at me like they wanted to say something but didn't. Richard stood frozen. He looked smaller. Older. Janice looked satisfied. She leaned in and whispered, now they'll deal with it. I walked out. Left the folder on the podium. I didn't need it anymore. The next few weeks were a blur. Laura tried calling. Texting. Long paragraphs. Voicemails. Promises. Excuses. Apologies. I didn't answer. She tried showing up at Mike's place once. He told her to leave. Janice sent me an update a month later. HR had placed Richard on leave. Laura had been reassigned to a non-client-facing role. Rumors were flying. Investigations were ongoing. They weren't fired, but they weren't respected anymore either. The silence afterward was heavy, but something strange happened too. I started to breathe again. I moved into a small one-bedroom downtown. Not much, but mine. I started therapy. I took a part-time project management role for a nonprofit that helps unemployed workers. Felt like it made sense. Mike helped me build a new routine. Janice stayed in touch, checking in now and then. She said she felt lighter, too. One evening, I got a final letter from Laura. Handwritten. She said she was sorry. Said she never expected it to go so far. That she missed who we were. That she ruined it. She didn't ask to come back. I think she knew the answer. Looking back, I don't know what I regret more, the years I spent loving someone who wasn't really there, or the years I spent doubting myself because of her. But I've learned something. Lies rot everything they touch. Even if they're hidden in smiles, wrapped in good intentions, they grow in silence. And the truth? It burns. But sometimes, burning everything down is the only way to see clearly. I didn't get revenge. I didn't get justice wrapped in a bow. But I got out. I got to start over. And that's more than I ever thought I'd have. I'm not healed yet. But I'm not broken anymore either.